Business of cybersecurity. Here are your co-hosts and cybersecurity experts, Brian Horning, Reginald Andre, and Randy Bryan.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition, a Friday edition of the Security Squawk podcast. I'm your co-host, Brian Horning, here with Randy Bryan and Reginald Andre. How are you, gentlemen?
Doing great, man. We never talk about the weather anymore.
I don't want to talk about the weather. The weather is just terrible here. It made me get a cold. I really believe the weather made me get a cold. And I got a friend who's got this conspiracy theory that our government is like doing things to the environment so we all get sick.
Whoa.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Well, great. Do I have to get the X-Files song out again?
Yeah.
Isn't there something about the solar that's going to stop the internet from working?
I don't know. We're using planes and we're spraying stuff in the atmosphere that's causing us all to basically die, I think. I don't know. Crazy stuff.
And to the FBI agents tuning in, we're not subscribing to those theories, right?
As this person is saying, New York is flooding. So here we go. Please share the show. Remember, we bring this stuff to you free of charge, and we don't bore you with commercials and promote products on this show. We just talk about cybersecurity, educate you on what's going on out there in the world and what you can start doing to protect yourself. And in return, we just ask that you help us grow this show by commenting, liking, subscribing where you can, and sharing us out where you can. We're on most social media platforms, and we're on every podcasting platform. So you can either listen to us or watch us. And also, while you do that, please just take the time to rate our show, give us a like, or share us out to your friends and family. It helps the show grow. It also helps the social media platforms understand the algorithms and what people like and what they don't like. And it allows people, when they search for things, to find this show when you do things like that and help us out. So that's kind of the intro. And we're going to get into a couple things today, guys. I'm a little under the weather. That's why we're doing this on a Friday. So I'm just going to try to plow through here and bring you the goods. But I'm sure Randy and Andre can make up for me if I have to step away because I'm coughing or something like that. But at the end of the day, we got some big vulnerabilities that are out there that we believe as a crew that are going to lead to some major cyber attacks here in the near future. So you're going to want to pay attention to that. Also, remember, put your comments down below. We'll see them. If you give permission to StreamYard, we will see them on our platform here. In StreamYard, and we'll bring them up on the screen and discuss them if they're relevant. So please share your comments wherever you're watching this right now. And what else are we going to talk about? We have a lot of emails that were just leaked out on the dark web, lots of them. So you're gonna want to pay attention to that and understand what that means to a lot of people. And I don't know, what else are we talking about? I don't know. I don't have the thing up in front of me, so help me out.
I think we're gonna talk about the Cisco routers.
Yeah,
it's actually several brands. We're gonna talk about Okta.
Oh yeah, we got to deep dive into what happened with MGM, right? And I think that's a good place to start the show off because that got a lot of attention. Amazing how a gambling company can really get the attention of the average American. And you start to learn, from where we sit, guys, it's interesting what gets attention and what doesn't, right? That's thing one. And sure enough, this MGM cyber attack is kind of, that's right up there with Colonial Pipeline for me in terms of how much press it's gotten. And we can debate whether that's warranted or not, but I just think there's been way more cyber attacks between Colonial Pipeline and MGM that deserve much more attention than this. First one I can think of is Kronos, right? People not getting paychecks for 3 months because a payroll company is down is a bigger deal than people being able to show up to a casino and lose their money. So let's jump into it. And talk about, we kind of mentioned it on the show last week, and when we talked about the MGM attack on the show, we mentioned Okta, and Okta has been at the center of a lot of cyber attacks recently. And I think it was Andre and who mentioned that it was like a 10-minute phone call that caused this cyber attack. And so we know more about that 10-minute phone call now. And quite frankly, this is cause for concern for a lot of organizations because this isn't the first time that we've seen a social engineering attack of this of this magnitude. And I think this is just the beginning of something that's going to be a big problem for companies in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
The lack of companies putting controls in place to verify people who are calling IT for help and support is becoming a major issue. And cyber criminals are getting very good at using this as a way into companies' networks. And it's happening more and more, in my opinion. So, what they call these are identity attacks, right? And MGM Resorts is one of these affected entities, and they have not yet fully disclosed the extent of the attack. And basically, our information is primarily based on information provided by the hackers, which is ALV, which used to be Black Cats. This is a big group, a very successful group, a group that can, handle taking down a company the size of MGM. It's been reported that the losses for MGM are about $9 million a day. And it's
This
gonna.
article says 50.
What's that?
This article says 50. So
A day?
that's new information. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
A day?
Yes.
Holy Jesus! Wow, I wish I made 50 million a day. But what we're talking about here, and the main issue, and what we want to bring awareness to, is these things called identity attacks. It's nothing new. This happened with Twitter. It's happened with other large companies. And these identity attacks, what they are, is they often involve impersonation of and privileged escalation. And as this article notes, and as I said earlier, it's a growing, persistent threat to organizations worldwide. And please share this show and make people who are in IT aware of this problem, because a lot of people may not be realizing that they have to put controls in place when it comes to who's calling into the help desk and whether or not that person on the other end of the line, usually somebody who has a certain level of higher access, because by default or it's required in IT for you to do things or make certain changes, that you have certain privileges that other people don't have. That's why they have to call somebody else to get it done. And it's really important that companies start looking at how they're handling these calls when they come in and what controls they have in place to verify the identity of the person calling in. This is something that my company takes very seriously. We have controls in place. If you don't pass the muster, then you're not going to get support on that particular call until we figure out who you are and we can confirm it through various methods. So, to truly understand, this article says, to truly understand the gravity, it is essential to delve into the history of impersonation types attacks and recognize urgency they present. Cyber criminals have been exploiting identity misconfigurations, and these can be considered weak passwords, inadequate MFA, lack of rate limiting, stale user account handling, which is how Colonial Pipeline got attacked. And this has been going on for decades. But the methods and sophistication of these attacks have evolved dramatically. And this article just goes on to basically point out that these things started with phishing attacks and social media attacks, and now they've evolved into phone calls, and we've put and this is just a cat and mouse game, right? We've put controls in place like MFA, like other things to prevent the attacks through like phishing and through social media. But people never really considered that somebody may be impersonating somebody over the phone. So there really isn't any controls there for a lot of companies, and hackers understand this, and that's what they're going after, is companies that have no way to verify whether the person on the other end of the line is who they say they are. And really, it's not hard for hackers to figure this out. All they have to do is make one phone call, and they can ask a few questions, or they can do certain things on that call to determine, and now you become a target because they understand that you don't have these things, and it's pretty easy to tell whether you have these things or not. So guys, your thoughts on kind of what I've laid out here in terms of, identity management and identity control, and these social engineering types of attacks that we've seen. And I don't know, one of you can go into the details of exactly how this went down at MGM now that we have more information. But I'm going to give it to you guys now and stop talking.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to talk about is, what pushback, or how many more times does this have to happen where we're going to get our clients to understand that it is like this, verification of getting support or asking for support. So, Brian, you said that you have that with your clients. We've been talking with our clients. We know there's solutions out there. But at the moment, we're getting pushback. It's like, hey, we're small. We know your voices. You know us. We know you, type of things. I don't know, for Randy, how's that happening? How's those conversations been with your clients?
People are saying that the problem here, I think, so we're looking at an article. We have an article for all of our viewers that we're looking at behind the scenes here. And the problem is the article calls out Okta, but you read it, it's not that they used some breach in Okta or they found some code in Okta, where they could get in and do their thing. They're literally doing what you just mentioned, social engineering. We all know they got into the help desk. No one verified who it was that called in. The bad actors were able to get passwords changed and get access, and boom, they're in. Then they start using, compromised passwords or whatever to get into other super admin accounts. Next thing you know, they're running the roost. In my opinion, this is the area we're going to see the most growth, and we're currently seeing the most growth is in social engineering, and people are underestimating how powerful it is. And yes, we are hearing that, Andre, from smaller businesses trying to say, well, we're too small, we're this, we're that, they don't have anything to get from us, when the reality is there's so much important data that they have, every business has, and there's so much money that can be made off every small business. They are still a huge target. And we're just going to see this social engineering thing is going to go through the roof. In fact, I'm planning on spending most of my month of October for Cybersecurity Month talking about this whole social engineering thing, because we're just seeing such a huge increase in it.
Yeah, 100%. One, Aranish, did put out a good comment here, that it's a shared security model. And I think that's something that a lot of businesses need to be educated on, right? Because it is a shared security model, right? You can't, unless your contract specifically states that, this company is coming in and taking this off our plate completely, which I don't know of any company that takes that kind of a risk. At the end of the day, both sides of this, whether you use an outside company or you have your own internal IT, it's a shared risk. Cybersecurity doesn't fall on the shoulders of your IT department. And that's been proven out, right? If you look at the recent cyber attack that happened in the medical field, the hospital escapes me right now, but I think it was HHSS something like that. But it was a one of those like Catholic run hospital systems, right? That was recently attacked, and their CFO was let go in the middle of the recovery process, right? Because why? I don't know, because that CFO probably fought for not to do cybersecurity, to keep IT at a certain spend level, right? And that resulted in them getting a cyber attack, which ultimately, as we've been warning, executives on this show for over a year now that you're going to lose your job if you get cyber attacked. Well, here we go. The CFOs are losing their jobs, right? And it's interesting to me, and rightfully so, it's usually not CEOs right now, unless it's really big. And CFOs make the most sense to me because they're the ones who fight IT
Yep.
on the spend on this stuff.
Yep.
So CFOs, be forewarned that if you are going to try to make IT fit into, or cybersecurity fit into an IT budget that you believe should be somewhere around 1 to 3%, you're probably on the road to getting hacked, and you're probably on the road to losing your job.
Yeah, that's interesting that you brought that up, because we've seen 5 potential attacks in the last, I'd say, 4 to 5 months, and 3 of them started with CFOs, where they social engineered the CFOs, and then the CFOs got into it a little bit, and then realized once they're almost too far in, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? Why am I about to give this person access to my bank, or why am I about to give access to this other stuff? Yeah, so I think that makes sense. I would agree with that. That does make a lot of sense, Brian. We're still seeing tons of CEOs get hit. A lot of times their information, like their email and stuff, is most visible, because almost every company on LinkedIn has a CEO, listed on LinkedIn. But at the same time, yeah, seen a lot of CFO action. So,
I mean, we don't have the time today because we're doing a short show today, and we're about 10 minutes away from where we got to end. But I think talking about this privileged access and this, how do you deal with impersonation types of attacks would be a good show, because I think we're only going to see this increase more. And people need to understand that there are things and tools that you need to have in place above and beyond what you probably know about and realize. And I'm talking about MFA and just, privileged access. That's all good, and you should have that, but that's not going to prevent this kind of stuff. And there are ways that you can prevent this kind of stuff, which I think it would be a good, at least good topic to talk about for a portion of the show next week. So
yeah, hackers are going to follow the money, and if they're all looking at their newspapers and blogs and like, what, they did that this way, that easy? Oh, we got to do it.
Yep. So moving right along, guys, we wanted to talk about 2 major vulnerabilities that were released. That's kind of what we were naming the show today, is like more vulnerabilities, more attacks on the horizon, right? And the reason why is because, number one, we just saw, coming off the heels of the Microsoft Exchange vulnerability that was hacked like crazy, and then we had the Move It one that was hacked like crazy. Well, now we have Move It announcing another popular file transfer tool has a major vulnerability. And along with that, on the same day, major firewall manufacturers, including Cisco, have announced that they have discovered back doors that the Chinese government has created that basically allows them to have unfettered access, undetectable access to your networks. And when Cisco comes out and says our firewalls are involved in this, that means a lot of companies are going to get hacked here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, this is pretty grim news, if you will, and the scarier thing about it, Cisco made the headline, but if you get down into the article, we're talking. They're saying that everywhere they're going, they're finding these same footprints in Juniper firewalls, Arista firewalls. They mentioned Huawei. We should probably assume that, but anyway, it's a pretty bad thing, Brian, because if you can control the firewall, you can monitor the traffic. A lot of times the firewall, you can make that what's called a man in the middle, where you could actually decrypt the traffic, look at it, and then re-encrypt it and send it back out. There's a lot of things that can happen to that traffic over the network if the firewall's been compromised.
And are they saying that they're recognizing this, but there's not even a fix for this yet, right? There's no update. Even if you're all patched up, you're still in this predicament.
Yeah, they're not quite sure what vulnerability or vulnerabilities that they're using, which is yeah.
The article I read yesterday was basically like they built their own vulnerability. They were able to basically change the firmware
Yeah.
running on these devices.
Yep.
Which is mind blowing. That now in the Cisco case, they basically came out and said, and I feel like this is that age old debate, because again we're a very infant industry, but for years now, a lot of cybersecurity professionals have been having this debate on, like, when Cisco comes out and says, well, this only impacts older firewalls. If you're using our newer firewalls, they have secure boot, and this can't be done, right? But there's a lot of companies out there who don't think twice about their firewall, right? The internet works. They don't need to worry about it. It was installed by some company years ago, and they don't worry about it. And there's a lot of companies out there that fall into that category.
Especially if they paid $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 for it. That is the last thing on their mind. We're gonna, milk this thing until it dies.
100%.
So sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say there's an entire Cisco sub ecosystem, if you will, where you're certified in Cisco. There's Cisco certification for high school students, college students. This is, like I said, pretty grim news, because they have been considered, safe, but at the same time, they're in a lot of places. That's part of their, the ecosystem that they sell is safety. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, it's not going to be pretty. We just know this based on the heels of, like I mentioned, the Microsoft Exchange, other attacks that are like this. These devices that are internet facing and companies that don't pay attention to them, it's a widespread issue. And we see it all the time. Vulnerabilities that have been discovered years and years ago, there's still devices out there today that exist, and people just don't do anything with them. And hackers know this. This is why there's a shift going on with cyber criminals. It's less about phishing, it's less about your employees, and it's more about this stuff right now, because they know this is an easier way in, and it's going to work because companies just put out horrible software that's full of security holes. And
I mean,
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, you said it's bad because if you're sitting on the firewall and you basically can theoretically decrypt all the traffic, so you could theoretically see the username and password potentially going over the internet. I mean, there's so much you could get from owning or pwning, whatever you want to call it, the firewall / router. That's usually what we're talking about here in most of these cases.
100%. So, I mean, and just to kind of touch on, I know we're quickly running out of time here, but to touch on the other vulnerability, we had this Move It one, right? And as I mentioned, the tally that CLOP has is over 2,000 organizations at this point that have been hit by Move It. That's a ton of money. I'm sure everyone that works at CLOP can go and retire on the French Riviera if they wanted at this point, which is wild if you think about it. But at the end of the day, there's a new vulnerability from MoveIt, the maker, who apparently they bought up like basically every FTP program known to man. They also own WSFTP, which is a very popular and has been around for as far as I can remember. It's been around for a long time. Now WSFTP server has several vulnerabilities that need to be patched immediately. And this is going to be the same story, guys. Some of the current people that we know that use this software are the Denver Broncos, a gaming company called Rocksteady, H&M Software, Scientific America. These are customers that we know use this product. So it's just going to be trouble. So
this is the time to scan your computers, look for those keywords for in your application and softwares, do audits, because if you have this, this is the time, no pun intended, but to move it.
yeah, and then kind of moving right along, guys. At the end of the day, here we got the last thing I want to kind of let everybody know about and what we're kind of looking at out there. We got a group out here called Darkbeam, who just leaked billions of email and password combinations. And it's pretty interesting because typically when you see this amount of records being dumped, it's usually kind of a compilation of what's already been out there. But we're learning that that's not the case with this one. And they believe that this group was able to obtain this through some kind of human error, where something was left unprotected. And unfortunately, hopefully you have a service that's looking on the dark web for this kind of stuff for you, whether you're doing it personally through like an Experian or some kind of credit monitoring who offers also dark web scanning, or maybe you have it through your company where your IT department or your outsourced IT provider is looking for this stuff on the dark web for you and making you aware of, hey, this combination, this username and password is out on the dark web. You want to maybe think about stop using it and maybe you start using a password manager as well. So that's kind of where things are at, but this is going to be another thing, guys, that's going to lead to more attacks, right? Usernames and passwords being out there, that allows, social engineering attacks like we saw with MGM to happen. And then it also allows for brute force attacks to happen where somebody just guesses a username and password on a corporate VPN because it's in this database, right?
Right. I mean, so actually, Darkbeam actually has a service for their customers where they search the dark web for vulnerabilities, and they compile a database, and they left that database open, so the information was leaked out. Apparently they were using it and keeping usernames and passwords so they could notify their customers. But then since they had all this information they had compiled, and then they left it open on an Elasticsearch, it looks like, and it was able to get leaked. So yeah, we're talking. So you sign up with these guys to monitor your dark web, and they ended up, you give them all your stuff so they can monitor that, and oops, they all accidentally leaked all that to the dark web. So
I bet you companies like KnowBe4 and Bullfish are running around making sure that their buckets are not unprotected.
Yep.
So, all right, guys, we've hit our limit. I got to run to a meeting. Anything else you guys want to share before I cut off the stream here? All good?
Yeah, all good.
All right.
Always lots to talk about.
Yep. It was a short, condensed show this week. We had to get it in and keep our weekly posting consistent, which we always do. I'm glad I'm feeling better enough here at the end of the week to get it done. We'll see you guys probably again on Tuesday, right? We're scheduled to go Tuesday.
Yep.
And then we'll just give everybody a heads up. In the end of October, we'll all be together in sunny Florida and bringing you a live show in some way, shape, or form. So we appreciate everyone's comments. Sorry we didn't get to them all. Look for our deep dive on these social engineering attacks next week, and we'll give you some insights on how you can start protecting yourselves from somebody calling in and impersonating an employee and leading to a hack. So see you in the next one. Take care.
All right.